Hi, my name is Janice TRUSKY-CLAY, and I teach Drawing 1 at Montgomery County Community College. And this is for my drawing students. I want you guys to draw from life as much as possible. There are going to be assignments where I tell you to draw from a photograph, okay? Now, I recommend printing your photograph out. So what I have here is a photograph. You can print it out larger if you would like. It's nice to have it on your computer or your phone so you can kind of zoom in and get detail. But there's nothing better than having the photograph right next to you at a quick glance while you're drawing. Okay, and this is just a generic way to make a grid. Ideally, you'll want to do a 1-to-1 ratio. So this would be a 1-to-1 ratio to the paper that you're drawing on. Then you can actually measure out the squares so they're perfect, to a degree, and you can really draw in what's inside of each square. For our purposes, I want you not to rely on a grid that much, so this is just going to be a generic version, all right? So what I want you guys to, try to get a 1-to-1 ratio, but if you can't, get something very close. When you print out the photograph, make sure there's no white paper around the photograph. You want to trim that off and just have the actual photograph around. Then you're going to get your photograph and you're going to do a quick fold on each corner and do a little pinch. You don't have to pinch the whole thing through or, crease everything. And then you do the next corner and you just go around on all 4 sides. You give a little pinch in the middle after you line up these corners. So this corner to this corner are going to line up, okay? You're going to make sure they're even, and then you're going to give a little pinch on the edge. And then there's one more side, this and this. And you're going to line it up, right? So there's nothing sticking out there and it's even. And you give it a little pinch, okay? So now we have our photograph. I don't know if you can see, but there's like a little crease here. And then I'll just turn it so you can kind of see the creases a little bit better. There's one there. There's one right there. And there's one there. Now what you might want to do is get maybe a pen that's a little bright and do like a little notch so you can see it a little bit more clearly as you're sketching on your good paper. And right there, okay? And that way you know where the halfway mark is. You don't have to draw the line all the way through. If you feel the need to, you can. I would recommend using a ruler so it's not a wiggly line. It's a nice, straight, accurate line. And then on your drawing paper, you might want to get a ruler or a straight edge, but I recommend a ruler because it has lines on it. And just measure the halfway mark here, and then here, and the halfway mark here, and here with your ruler, okay? And, of course, you can measure it out like so with a ruler and measure it out. And again, you don't really necessarily need to draw a line straight through or straight through this way if you don't want to, because you're only going to have to erase it. So if you do, you want to go very, very lightly, okay? What I sometimes do is I'll just put like a little notch. After I line it up from here to here, I will put just a little tiny, super light line right there, just so I can see it. I don't think you'll be able to see it with the camera, but there's a little line there. And then I go from this line to that, and then I do another very light line right there. And so you'll have, I don't know if we'll see it. I might have to bring it up closer. But you'll have like a little cross in the center, and you see the notches on all the sides there, okay? Now, with that done, now you have an idea of what's in this corner, the upper right, the upper left, and then the lower left and right corners. And that way you can start saying, okay, well, this mountaintop is, this far in from the edge. And if I say here, maybe the middle of there is right there. So maybe this curve here kind of go right about in there, okay? And then you can start sketching in all this. And you have an idea of where the center of the drawing is, all right? And if you want to measure this part out or do a little mark in the center, just make sure you're not covering up any needed details. You know, you can do a mark right in the center there. And then you can do another little mark in the center here. And that's going to tell you, okay, so the center is going to be right about here in the drawing. So that tells me that this water line here is this far below the center. See that? And you could tell that this mountain ridge comes this far in from the center vertically. Okay? And so you can start measuring things off of each other. And, you know, like I said, if you need to, you can go in another half and half, half, okay, and go around that way. But I think just cutting it in 4 should be good enough for you. I don't want you to rely on the grid method, but it is helpful to do a quick measurement just to find out where the halfway marks are, okay, on your paper and on your photograph. That way, again, you know that, you know, the horizon line would be up here, but, you know, the end of the water line is below the halfway mark. You know, things like that. And you'll see that this rock, most of this rock is to the left, but a little bit comes out over the right. Okay, so if for the purposes of this video, I'll just draw a line straight through. Okay, and now you can see that a little bit of this rock shows on the other side. See that? But most of it's on this side. And it's this rock from the bottom. So this method should help you with your assignments. And of course, email me with any questions. I hope this helps.